When we talk about asking a woman for intimacy without pressure, the very first and most important thing to understand is this: her autonomy must come first. Autonomy means her independence, her right to make choices, her ownership over her body, her feelings, and her decisions. It might sound simple, but it's something many people forget when desire or attraction is involved. Too often, someone's own wants or expectations start to take over, and they lose sight of the fact that the other person has just as much power in the situation, and that power deserves to be respected. Without that respect, there can't be trust. And without trust, intimacy loses all of its meaning. Think about it for a moment. If you care for someone, if you're drawn to her, it isn't just about what you want. It's about whether she truly wants the same thing. Respecting her autonomy means you're not just focused on your desire, but you're giving her the space to feel safe in making her own choice. And safety, emotional safety especially, is at the heart of real intimacy. When a woman knows that you honor her decisions, that you will not push her into something she doesn't feel ready for, she feels free. And freedom is what allows her to step into closeness with authenticity, not out of fear or obligation. Here's the reality: no woman owes intimacy to anyone, not because of time spent together, not because of dates, not because of gifts, not even because of a relationship status. Intimacy is never a transaction. It is a gift, and a gift loses its value the moment it's demanded. So when you approach her, you have to let go of this mindset that says, I've earned this, or she should because, no, she should only if she wants to. Period. That's respect. Respecting autonomy also means being prepared for any answer. And that's where many people get stuck. They ask, but deep down, they've already attached themselves to a specific response. So when she says no or not right now, disappointment turns into pressure, and pressure turns into manipulation. But if you truly respect her autonomy, you'll understand that her no isn't a rejection of you as a person. It's simply a statement of what she feels is right for herself in that moment, and that deserves to be honored without question. There's something powerful actually in showing that kind of acceptance. When you ask gently and she knows you're genuinely okay with her answer, whatever it may be, you're sending her the message that she is not just safe with you, but valued beyond physical intimacy. You're saying, I see you as a whole person, not just as a means to fulfill my desire. And trust me, when a woman feels seen in that way, when she knows her boundaries will be respected, it deepens the connection far more than pressure ever could. We often underestimate how much our presence communicates even without words. If you're restless, impatient, or entitled, she can feel it. If you're calm, patient, and accept, she can feel that too. Respect isn't just something you declare, it's something you embody. It's in your tone, your body language, the patience in your timing, and even in the way you handle disappointment. Every signal matters, because every signal either tells her, I honor your autonomy, or I'm trying to bend it to my will. And here's where maturity comes in. Respecting her autonomy means also respecting your own self-control. It means saying, my attraction is real, my desire is real, but it does not give me the right to override her freedom. Instead of seeing that as a limitation, see it as a strength. Because the truth is, intimacy that comes from mutual choice, mutual desire, is so much more fulfilling than intimacy that comes from pressure. One comes from authenticity, the other from compromise. An authentic connection will always outshine forced closeness. Sometimes people fear that asking without pressure makes them seem passive, like they're not confident or assertive enough. But that's not true at all. Real confidence is the ability to handle both outcomes with grace. It's being secure enough to express your interest while being grounded enough to honor her autonomy. And when you do that, you're not only showing respect for her, you're also showing respect for yourself, because you're saying, I want something real, not something forced. Imagine for a second how much lighter intimacy feels when both people are stepping into it freely. When both are saying yes with no hesitation, no guilt, no fear of disappointing the other. That's what makes intimacy powerful. It becomes an expression of choice, not a surrender to pressure. And when she knows you will always protect that freedom for her, the trust that grows between you becomes unshakable. So when you think about asking, let it come from a place of genuine respect. See her autonomy as the foundation, not as an obstacle. Because the moment you let go of pressure, the moment you stop seeing intimacy as something to win or negotiate, you actually open the door to something deeper, something far more lasting. And that's the kind of closeness worth waiting for. When it comes to asking a woman for intimacy, communication is everything, but not just any communication, the kind that is clear, honest, and filled with care. Too often people make the mistake of relying on hints, on vague gestures, or on subtle signals, hoping the other person will just pick it up. But intimacy should never be a guessing game. Clarity is not only respectful, it's essential. It tells her that you value her enough to speak openly instead of playing around with uncertainty. And when that clarity is paired with genuine care, it transforms the entire interaction from something potentially uncomfortable into something safe and meaningful. Now, let's be real, asking for intimacy can feel vulnerable. It takes courage to express desire openly. But what makes that courage powerful is when it's balanced with gentleness. Careful communication doesn't rush, it doesn't corner, it doesn't demand, it creates space. It says, "This is how I feel, and I'd like to know how you feel too." That's the kind of conversation that honors both people equally. Sometimes people think they're being respectful by staying vague, like saying, maybe we could hang out. Maybe we could spend some time together, when what they actually mean is something much more intimate. But vagueness can backfire. It leaves the other person confused, unsure of what you really want. And in that confusion, it's easy for her to feel pressured because she doesn't even know what she's responding to. Clarity, on the other hand, gives her the gift of certainty. She knows exactly what you're asking, and that knowledge empowers her to give an honest answer. But clarity doesn't mean bluntness. There's a difference between being straightforward and being careless. Saying, "I want you now," without considering her comfort might be clear, but it lacks sensitivity. Care is what softens clarity, what makes it approachable. It's about tone, timing, and context. You're not just delivering information, you're inviting connection. The way you frame your words, the gentleness in your voice, the respect in your body language, these are the elements that communicate care. And let's not forget that communication is not just about talking, it's about listening. Careful communication means you don't just express your desire, you make space for her response without interrupting, without trying to influence, without rushing her. You listen with the same openness you had when speaking. That's how you show her that her voice matters just as much as yours. Another important part of communicating with clarity and care is avoiding manipulation. That means no guilt, tripping, no trying to convince her that saying yes will prove her feelings. No twisting her words into something that fits what you want to hear. Manipulation may seem subtle in the moment, but it leaves lasting damage, because even if she agrees, she won't feel safe, she'll feel trapped. And intimacy born out of that isn't intimacy at all. Real intimacy can only thrive when both people arrive there by their own free will, and manipulation takes that freedom away. And here's something worth remembering. Being clear doesn't make you less attractive. Some people fear that asking directly will ruin the mood, that being open will make them seem awkward. But in truth, clarity builds trust, and trust is deeply attractive when you speak openly and kindly. She sees you as someone confident enough to be honest and secure enough to handle whatever response she gives. That kind of honesty creates a deeper bond than any smooth line ever could. Think of how refreshing it feels when someone doesn't play games with you, when they don't leave you guessing, when you know exactly where they stand. That same relief is what you give her when you choose clear and caring words. It makes the moment feel honest, it makes her feel valued, and it creates an environment where intimacy can flow naturally instead of being forced. Careful communication also means being mindful of timing. Choosing a moment when she feels comfortable, when the setting is private and respectful, matters. Springing the question in the middle of a crowded space, or when she's distracted, or when she's vulnerable, sends the wrong message. Care is about considering not just what you say, but when and how you say it. You're showing her that you're attuned to her comfort, not just your own desires. And when she responds, whether with enthusiasm, hesitation, or refusal, the way you receive her answer is just as much a part of communication as the way you ask. If she says yes, respond with gratitude, not entitlement. If she says no, respond with grace, not frustration. Both responses should leave her with the unshakable sense that she was heard, respected, and valued. That's how you build trust for the future, no matter what her answer is in the present. In the end, communicating with clarity and care is not about perfect wording or rehearsed lines. It's about sincerity. It's about genuine enough to express yourself honestly and compassionate enough to hold space for her truth too. Because when intimacy comes from a place of open-hearted communication, it becomes something deeper than physical connection. It becomes an expression of respect, trust, and choice. One of the most important aspects of asking for intimacy without pressure is learning to read and respect boundaries. Because the truth is, a woman may not always express her feelings with direct words. Sometimes her boundaries come through in subtle ways, through her body language, her tone, or the way she shifts in a conversation. And if you truly care about her, if you truly respect her, then part of your role is to be attentive enough to notice those signals and mature enough to honor them. It's easy to hear someone say no and understand that as a boundary. That's straightforward. But what about when she hesitates? What about when she doesn't respond right away, or she changes the subject, or she laughs nervously to ease the tension? Those are boundaries too. They may not be verbal, but they're communication nonetheless. And respecting those unspoken boundaries is just as important as respecting a direct no. Because hesitation, silence, or discomfort all speak volumes, and it's your responsibility to listen with sensitivity. Here's something to remember. Intimacy should never feel like a negotiation. The moment it feels like you're bargaining, trying to convince her, or searching for loopholes in her words, you've already crossed the line into pressure. Respecting boundaries means you don't treat her, no, or her uncertainty as something to argue against. It's something to accept. And acceptance is not defeat. It's a demonstration of maturity and self-control. Think of how much trust is built when a woman realizes she can say no to you and you will still remain calm, kind, and respectful. That experience tells her more about your character than any words ever could. It tells her that she is safe with you, that her boundaries are not obstacles you want to push past, but lines you're willing to honor. And when she feels that safety, it opens the door to deeper trust. Ironically, respecting a no can sometimes build more connection than hearing a yes, because it shows her you value her autonomy more than your desire. Respecting boundaries also means respecting the pace at which intimacy develops. Just because you're ready doesn't mean she is. And that doesn't mean she'll never be. It may just mean she needs more time, more comfort, more trust. If you push, you break that trust. But if you give her the space to come closer at her own pace, you allow intimacy to grow naturally. And intimacy that grows naturally is always richer, always more meaningful than intimacy that is forced before its time. Now, here's where self-awareness plays a big role. Sometimes when someone feels rejected, their ego takes over. They might feel insulted, embarrassed, or insecure. And out of that discomfort, they might lash out, withdraw affection, or make her feel guilty for setting boundaries. But that's not respect, that's punishment. And when you punish someone for setting a boundary, what you're really doing is teaching them that it isn't safe to be honest with you. Once that trust is broken, it's very hard to rebuild. Instead, choose a different response. When she draws a boundary, honor it with grace. Show her that your respect for her goes beyond your immediate wants. That kind of response communicates strength, not weakness. It says, I am in control of myself. I value your comfort. I care about your well-being as much as my own desires. And that level of respect leaves a lasting impression. But let's also be clear, respecting boundaries isn't just about stopping when she says no. It's also about not pushing until she's forced to say no. Think about the difference. If you constantly push for intimacy, if you keep asking, hinting, or escalating, you're putting her in the position of having to defend herself again and again. That in itself creates pressure. True respect is about recognizing the signals early, reading the atmosphere, and knowing when not to ask at all. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is simply wait. Respecting boundaries also means respecting your own. It's not just about her saying no. It's also about you being honest with yourself about what you want and what you're willing to accept. If the pace she's comfortable with doesn't align with what you're seeking, it's better to acknowledge that respectfully than to push her into a place she's not ready for. Healthy intimacy can only happen when both people are aligned, and that alignment can't be forced. It has to be mutual. And here's the beautiful thing about boundaries. They're not barriers to intimacy. They're the very framework that protects it. Boundaries are what make intimacy safe, sacred, and meaningful. Without boundaries, there is no trust. And without trust, intimacy is just a hollow act. But when you respect boundaries, you build a foundation of trust strong enough to carry real closeness, real connection, and real vulnerability. So as you ask for intimacy, let your awareness be wide open. Listen not just to her words, but to her silences. Notice her expressions, her comfort level, her energy. And when you see a boundary, don't see it as a door closing. See it as a chance to show her who you are, a person strong enough to handle rejection, kind enough to respect her limits, and wise enough to know that intimacy is not about getting what you want. It's about creating something that both people want equally. When we talk about intimacy, it's important to remember that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It grows in an environment, just like a plant needs soil, water, and sunlight to thrive. Intimacy needs safety, comfort, and trust. And it's not just about physical safety, it's about emotional safety too. A woman needs to feel that she's in a space where she can be herself, where she can say what she feels, where she knows that her comfort is valued. Without that kind of environment, even the most honest words or respectful intentions can fall flat. Creating a safe environment starts with the way you show up in her life. Are you consistent? Do you keep your word? Do you treat her feelings with care even when they don't align with yours? These small, everyday choices build a sense of security. And when she feels secure, she naturally begins to relax around you. That relaxation is what allows intimacy to blossom, because intimacy is not just about closeness of bodies. It's about closeness of hearts, and hearts can only open in spaces where they feel safe. Pressure, on the other hand, destroys that safety. Even subtle pressure, like sighing when she hesitates, acting disappointed when she says no, or asking the same thing repeatedly, can make her feel like intimacy is expected of her rather than freely chosen. And when intimacy feels expected, it no longer feels safe. It becomes an obligation instead of a choice. That's why creating a pressure-free environment is so essential. It ensures that if she does choose to be intimate, it's coming from a place of genuine desire, not from a fear of letting you down. Think of it this way: when a woman feels pressured, her guard goes up. But when she feels safe, her guard comes down naturally. And the kind of connection that flows from safety is infinitely more meaningful than anything forced. Because it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's psychological, it's spiritual, it's intimacy in its truest form. So how do you create that safe, pressure-free environment? It begins with patience. Patience says, I'm here. I value your pace. I don't need to rush this moment, because what we're building matters more than instant gratification. Patience is one of the most powerful forms of respect you can show. It communicates confidence, maturity, and care all at once. It says you're secure enough in yourself to wait until the moment feels right for both of you. It's also about the atmosphere you create. Do you speak to her in ways that affirm her worth? Do you celebrate her boundaries instead of testing them? Do you create experiences where she feels cherished and not objectified? A safe environment is built through consistency. When she sees that your kindness doesn't disappear when you don't get your way, when she realizes your affection isn't conditional on her agreeing to intimacy, she begins to feel deeply safe with you. And that safety is what opens the door to closeness. Another aspect of creating safety is vulnerability. When you're willing to share your thoughts, your feelings, your fears, you show her that you trust her with your own heart, and trust invites trust. If she sees that you're not hiding behind a facade of control or entitlement, she's more likely to feel comfortable lowering her own guard. Vulnerability is a powerful bridge, and it's one of the clearest ways to say, I want a real connection, not just a moment. And let's not forget, safety also means acceptance. It means that whether she says yes, no, or not yet, she knows you'll respond with grace. It means she feels free to change her mind at any point, because she knows you'll honor her decision without resentment. That's the true test of whether the environment you've created is really pressure-free. Does she feel just as safe saying no as she does saying yes? If the answer is yes, then you've given her the gift of complete freedom. And in that freedom, intimacy becomes a choice, not a burden. The beauty of creating this kind of environment is that it deepens the bond between you regardless of the outcome in that moment. Even if she's not ready, even if intimacy doesn't happen right away, she will never forget the way you made her feel safe, respected, and valued. That kind of memory builds trust that lasts far beyond a single evening. And when intimacy does eventually happen, it will be richer and more meaningful, because it will have been born out of mutual readiness, not out of pressure. So as you think about asking for intimacy, don't just think about the words you'll say. Think about the environment you've created. Does she feel like she has space to breathe, to choose, to be fully herself? Does she feel cherished for who she is, not just for what she can give? If the answer is yes, then you've already laid the foundation for intimacy. Because intimacy is not built in moments of pressure, it's built in moments of trust. And at the heart of that trust is the environment you create together. One where she feels safe, where she feels free, and where closeness becomes not just possible, but natural. Because when intimacy comes from a place of safety, it's not just shared, it's treasured.